start. Yep. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Claire Regan, SPJ president. Welcome to our board meeting and membership meeting. Calling the meeting to order at 7:06 Eastern time. Let's see. So we'll hold off on roll call, Israel. Is that what you just said?
No. Go ahead and do the roll call
Okay.
because we got a quorum, and
Yeah,
so
okay.
and then we can, and then when they come in,
Right.
we can make a note that they arrived.
Okay, go ahead. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Claire.
Here.
Ashanti Blaze Hopkins.
Here.
Emily Block. Daniela Ibarra.
Sorry. Zoom decided this was the right time to install an update right now, so I'm here.
Okay, so Emily's here. Great to have you. Daniela Ibarra. Not present. Jody Rafe Spotted Bear. Not present. Adam Sennett. Not present. Kevin Smith.
Here.
Peter.
Here.
And Israel is here. So that's 6 present, Madam Chair. So we got a quorum.
Yeah. Thank you. And you'll stay on the lookout for the others as they come in, right? Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, great. So brief welcome, number 3, we're on the agenda, and just want to let everybody know that we're holding the meeting on a weeknight this time. We're sort of alternating. Can never find a perfect time for all of our members, but gonna go back to Saturday for the next one. So we'll do weeknight, then weekend type of thing. And this being Memorial Day weekend, I didn't think it would work out too well for a meeting. So hopefully tonight works for a lot of people. In the interest of time, since our last meeting was just on April 29th, less than a month ago, there will be no committee chair reports tonight and no reports from the interim ED or from the SPJ president, just for the interest of time, so that we can start Memorial Day weekend as soon as possible and get through all our business. So tonight, with the budget situation mostly behind us, we can move on to other projects finally, and some positive projects, especially the selection of the Fellows of the Society.
Voting in progress.
Which will be later on the agenda, and also planning for our conventions. So those are on the agendas. The agenda does include an executive session, and but then I did add another public session, so there are 2 to make sure that everybody gets a chance to have a say. And that's my welcome, and we'll move on to the minutes. Do I have a motion can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 29th?
Madam Chair, point of inquiry.
Yeah.
You didn't set who's going to be the parliamentarian.
Yes, I just, sorry, he's not here yet. So it is Fred Brown. And I just reached out to him. He's on his way.
Okay, just wanted to ask. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So watch out for him too. He's coming in. Yeah, so do we have a motion to move on to the minutes and approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes from the April 29th meeting.
I'll second.
Second, thank you. Discussion, corrections? Okay, thank you. Daniela is here. Thank you, Daniela.
Would you like to call the vote, Madam Chair?
Yeah, I think we're ready. All those in favor of approving the April 29th minutes, please raise your hand. Okay.
Or affirm, say aye, because I don't have camera tonight. So.
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any
Aye.
abstentions? Up.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself fast enough.
So you have an aye for approval.
Yes.
Peter, okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The minutes are approved. Thank you all. All right, moving on to the business at hand. Time for our convention discussion. We're planning and discussing the 2024 convention with some other options that have come up as a result of recent challenges that the society has faced. So some really good discussions have been going on. We're going to bring them to the table here to the meeting and hopefully hear some opinions and maybe some other ideas about convention going forward. I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer Royer, our interim executive director, and Katie Riggs, our event planner. And they have some information to share with you.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. Katie, do you want me to go through the slides first and then you can answer questions? Does that work? Okay. I just broke out some of the important information so you all can see it on your screens, and I just need to share my screen. So many windows. Okay, so for Convention 24, we've received some proposals, and we've boiled it down to basically if we want to do an in-person convention in 24, we're looking at Cincinnati or Indianapolis. Requests were also made to Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Cleveland, New Orleans, and Savannah, Georgia. And they came back and said they either didn't have enough space for us on the dates that we needed, or they didn't have the dates available. So given that 2024 is SPJ's 115th birthday, we thought, Indianapolis made sense. There have been proposals to include a visit to DePaul University during that time. So, that is one option, or the other would be another nice Midwest city, Cincinnati. So the hotels that got back to us here are just a couple in Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Marriott at River Center and the Embassy Suites by Hilton at Cincinnati River Center. You can see the dates. They are both available in early October, and there are the room rates there as well. And then for Indianapolis, we heard from 3 hotels, the Marriott downtown, and then the JW Marriott, which is also basically downtown. They're available in September for some different dates, and then also kind of mid-October, and there are the room rates there on your screen. And then there's one more for Indianapolis, the Hyatt Regency, also available the first week of October, and the room rate is right there. So Claire mentioned a lot of different options that we have. People have been discussing hosting a virtual convention in 2024, given just recent events, the budget situation that we just are coming out of. So that would be an option. We could alternate in-person and virtual conventions. So 2024 could be virtual, 25 in person, and so on. We could host in-person conventions every other year. So not have a convention at all in 24 and then go back to in-person in 25 and see if we like alternating that way. There's also a lot of interest in us partnering with ACP and CMA again in Washington, D.C. every 3 years. So that would be in 25, 28, and so on. So in addition, I just want to mention that I've reached out to a lot of other executive directors at other journalism organizations and told them that we're open to discussing partnerships with them in future conventions. So those conversations are ongoing, and we will let you know if anything develops and looks like it could actually come to fruition. So and then for future conventions, we try to alternate between different parts of the country. And so in if we do the Midwest in 24, we're recommending in 25, looking at Baltimore, Washington, D.C., possibly with the partners that I mentioned, or Orlando as a third option. And then in 26, looking at Dallas, Denver, Salt Lake City, Savannah, Georgia, and then 27 and beyond. We're really recommending that we go back to our pre-COVID practices of scheduling these out several years. We just get a better choice of dates and pricing and all of that. So something for the board to think about. Our recent conventions, I just thought I would throw this in here for your knowledge. 22 in DC, of course, with our partners, we had 1,800 attendees. In 21, it was virtual, and we had 457 attendees and planned 40 total virtual sessions. In 2020, that was our first virtual convention because of COVID. We had 388 attendees and 25 sessions. And then San Antonio, pre-COVID 2019, we were with RTD&A and NAHJ and had almost 1,500 attendees. So that's just some information for you. I'm happy to go back to slides if you have questions, and I'll just hand it over to Katie now.
So I'm happy to take questions from anyone who has particular questions on the process, what we've done to date, or just any suggestions. For those of you who aren't overly familiar with me, I've worked in the meetings and event industry for over 20 years. I do sourcing for a number of organizations, so I can, help you with any statistics or trends that we're seeing post-COVID in the meetings and event industry if you have any questions about that. So I'll just open it for questions, and feel free to ask me whatever you
Katie.
have.
We're going to open it to the board first to see if any questions from the board members, and then we'll go to the public session. So actually, it might be helpful if you unshare. I don't know, unless people want to refer to a slide, Jennifer, I guess. Let's leave it up. I see Emily Black has her hand up. Emily?
Hi, yeah, thanks again for doing this. Last year when we were in this position of, or I guess it was 2 years ago, picking a site, I remember that they had narrowed it down to 2, and that Katie, you and your team strongly recommended one over the other, and it's not what the board ended up going with. And I wonder if you're in a similar position this year where there's one site that you recommend more than another, and if you could kind of share some insight on why that is and what that looks like from your perspective.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So first I would say that I think Cincinnati or Indianapolis could be a good fit for us. I would say that in Indianapolis, I've got strong relationships with Visit Indy and also with White Lodging, who is the ownership group of both the Marriott and the JW, as well as I know the lead sales team at Hyatt very well, the 3 hotels that bid on us. That being said, they've already come back to us multiple times. They're very interested in hosting us here in Indianapolis since we're headquartered here. Obviously, they'd like to keep the convention here. I would say our negotiation points are stronger in Indianapolis. And given that we've just been under some budget constraints and looking to really, if we secure a live convention in 24, have a very lucrative, cost-effective solution, I think Indianapolis could do that. At this time, my suggestion, if you want my overall suggestion, would be that we go ahead and do boots on the ground site visits. So staff goes and does those, where we tour the hotels from an SPJ perspective, talk to the teams, see how much more lucrative we can get the deals that you've seen here, the price points for rooms, et cetera, are their first round. They usually don't have any other dates. I asked them for 6 sets of dates with alternating patterns, and they were able to give me what they had available. But we might be able to get the rate down a little bit, or a lower food and beverage, or some additional concessions. In fact, the Indy Marriott hotels came out to us just yesterday with some additional concessions. If, for example, we were to sign a contract by the end of June, that's a deal they have going on right now. I also think that the reason we would look at Cincinnati is that it's a short drive away. So it's very easy to go and look. And that way we don't discount that opportunity. And Cincinnati has some nice perks. They have really low sales tax, really low occupancy tax. So those are some things that bring our overall spend down, as well as our attendees' overall spend. So my suggestion at this time is that we go take a look at both of those, and then we make an ultimate suggestion on which city and which property to move forward with. The properties you looked at in Cincinnati, or that you see there, we would be utilizing both of those properties. It's a slightly different situation than what we've done before. Neither one of these hotels can hold us completely. So we would have 2 options, which I think is nice. We have a Marriott and a Hilton option for rewards members. So they would have the option to stay in whatever block has availability when they go to book their room. And we would be using some convention center space for that. So it would be a slightly different feel than what we have done in previous years. So I think it's worth a look at both at this time.
Thank you for that. The only other thing I want to flag before yielding to the rest of my board members is number 1, Bob Becker in the chat dropped dates for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I do think it's important that we're mindful of that. I think it's important for our membership to show that we are considering that and not right in the middle of those observations, which would in turn affect their conference availability and participation. And the other thing I'd flag is it's kind of a question. I guess this would be a question for Ashanti and Claire, but are either of these, like if it was in Cincinnati or in Indy, are those still open to a partnership situation, or are those dates already locked down? I guess that would also be a question for CMA. I know I think I saw
I
Jackie
can-
on the call. But yeah.
I can answer that question because I know I personally have spoken to leaders of SPJ, SPJ, NABJ, NAHJ, CMA, and ACP. They are all locked in already for 2024. We are way behind the game in this. So, the likelihood of us getting a partner in 2024 is slim to none, and Slim's out of town. So I don't think that that's going to happen. I think we would have needed to start planning a lot sooner than now. So I think wherever we go, we're going to be alone if we decide to go in person.
Got it. I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't something on the table as far as how we were voting or what we were looking at for next steps today. Cool. And I see Jackie in the chat saying CMA is already locked down for their 2024 as well. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Most organizations that have annual conferences, as Jennifer mentioned, getting back to sort of that being booked out a few years. This is very rare for a conference with, over just a few hundred people to not be locked in, because space is really short right now. I mean, we're just a year and a half away, and there is still compression from COVID. Meetings are all back live. Hotels are at 90 to 95% occupancy. Travel is back over pre-COVID rates. So at this point, we're just a little behind the curve. And so I would agree that we're going to be hard pressed to find, for those that might want to throw out other cities or other dates, like it's just really, really hard right now to be this close and find a lot of alternate options.
Okay, I'm just looking around. I don't see any board members with their hand up. Ashanti, if you could help me if you see anybody, but I'm wondering if maybe Jennifer, you could go down to the slide with the options and we could have the board members weigh in on some of those. So why don't we tackle them bullet by bullet? So hosting a virtual convention in 2024, not meeting in person. Let's hear from any board members on that. Israel, looks like, and Kevin. We'll go Israel and Kevin. I have to look down the side of my screen here, so excuse me if I'm a little slow. Israel, go ahead.
I think from the last meeting we had, there was discussion as to the benefits of a virtual convention, given the financial situation that we still face. And Katie, I'm curious if, let's just play it out here. If we were to go to Indianapolis and we get the best deal, what's the break-even number? How many people would we need, attendees, so that we could come out, let's say realistically 25,000 ahead?
So if we're budgeting similarly to this year, I could pull it up quickly. I don't have it open, but I believe I set anticipated attendance at like 450. So I think pretty low. We were able to pull out almost 800 people in DC. I understand DC is a unique anomaly where we've got the ability for lots of people, because it is such a heavy media market, to just drive in. But budgeting even at just 450, we're set to make a substantial profit this year, as long as we keep all costs under control, which I'm working very diligently to do as we're planning individual events. So I can't give you an exact number today. I could certainly run those numbers and provide those to Jennifer for deployment to you all by next week if you wanted me to. But I would say if you're looking at 400 or 450 attendees, you're going to be just fine, because we are able to, we're proactively setting, we need this AV cost so that we can budget based on certain numbers. And so that is the AV budget, for example, I'm working with in Las Vegas. We're right underneath the budget in what is in the budget for the convention. So I'd say around 450, because, once we set really the big thing is once we set a food and beverage minimum, we need to be able to hit that food and beverage minimum, and we don't feed people a whole lot based on just our low cost of registration. There's not a lot of flexibility in there for a lot of food costs. So I would say about 450. I don't think personally, I don't think you're going to have any problem hitting 450 based on how many people had a really, high interest in being at the convention last year. And even when we were looking at New Orleans in more COVID year, right? Like a heavier COVID, lots of variants going on. We were tracking towards 500 attendees even that year before we pulled back to a virtual event in still pretty much the height of COVID. So I think we're going to be healthy at 500 or above this year. And I would think you'd repeat the same next year as well.
Okay, I mean, I think if those numbers, hold as the way Katie says it, then it would make sense for Indianapolis given the 150th anniversary. But I know there was some serious talk, and I'd be curious to hear from Ashanti, because I know she was the first one to bring it up last time, as to, what's the percentage chance that we should go virtual in 2024 to save some money. So money would be my concern.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, thank you. I did mention Kevin next, but Ashanti, you okay if Ashanti goes first, Kevin? Oh, I think you're on mute. Go ahead, Ashanti.
Okay, yeah, I guess my biggest concern is a couple of different factors. One, we still do very much have a budget issue. And I want to be mindful of that as a board member and as the incoming president, that we are paying attention to what we have going out in addition to what we have coming in. The other kind of factors that concern me a bit is that the timing. We are very late in planning this, and that does concern me. Not to say anything about Katie's abilities or capabilities to get this done, but it is a shortened period of time to be planning a convention. The other concern that I have is that, when I look at our economy and when I look at the state of our industry, we have had a massive amount of layoffs, and there are likely more layoffs to come at other news media organizations, which means that by the time we get to 2024, there's a possibility that people aren't going to either have the money or be willing to spend it on a convention where they have to travel and spend money on registration and a hotel and all of those things. So I just think that we have to keep those external factors in mind. And those were factors that weren't necessarily in place in our past conventions pre-COVID. So while I understand, yes, we could get 450 and we'd be good, the assumption is that people are going to have the money and the finances in place to be able to travel to Cincinnati or Indianapolis for an in-person convention. And so I just think that that is something that we have to consider when we're making this decision. Inflation is a thing. We are potentially headed towards a recession, which means that, people are not going to have the discretionary spending that they might have had previously. And so I just think it's something that as we are making this decision, we need to factor in. As I look at our industry and all the people that have been laid off in our industry, many of them are our members. Providing a virtual convention in 2024 from an equity standpoint would mean that more people would get to attend. And we would still make money off of it because we don't have the same overhead as we would have for an in-person convention. We can still charge for a virtual convention, obviously not as much, but again, the overhead would not be as high. So just things to consider as you make this decision, that there are external factors that impact how successful the 2024 convention could be.
Good points. Thank you, Ashanti.
The only thing I wanted to, sorry, Claire, the only thing I wanted to just say, Ashanti, on the planning side is that for the 24 convention, we wouldn't start planning the actual logistics outside of just getting it contracted from a staff perspective until we've executed the 23 event. And that's a pretty standard across the board planning timeline.
I guess my issue was less of the logistics of the planning and more of the logistics of, getting the hotels and making sure that we have options, right? We don't have a lot of options. We just don't, because we are late in the game. So it's more of, our options are very limited at this point because of the lateness in the game that we're planning. So that's why I said not from a competent standpoint from where you sit, but from a just what is out there and the availability of what's on the market. That is a thing, right? So that's really what I was talking about, not so much your capability to plan.
Okay, all right, let's go on to Kevin. And you're on mute. Oh, you're still on mute. Okay, there you go. Oh, no, we're not hearing you, Kevin. No. No, can't hear you yet either. Let me go to, oh, sorry, I can't see everybody. Daniela and then Peter, and we'll go back to Kevin. Daniela.
I think Ashanti made some very good points. I know virtual isn't a lot of people's favorite thing, but I mean, with the risk, with, you know, the economy, like Ashanti mentioned, that's something I didn't even think about. Like, I'm just thinking month to month right now. And I think that's a super good point. And then with equity too, I mean, I just like to think about students, right? And that's a way that we can get more students is if they do the virtual conference. So I'm kind of leaning towards that.
You're leaning towards virtual. Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. And Peter.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my head around this. It sounds like and somebody tell me if you agree or not. It sounds like what we really have to decide is really is based on a lot of forecasts, our forecast for the economy, our forecast for our own industry. Are there going to be a lot more layoffs, or are a lot more people going to get raises like the workers at the Times just won with a new contract if it's ratified? I mean, all those are forecasts. Now, Katie had a projection that we would make money likely on 450, and that was a likely that was achievable. So anything. So I guess I'm looking for some kind of guidance on how likely it is that that projection you had, Katie, would be upset by the economy, although we are going to have, as Bob Becker points out, an election year. That usually means more work for people, for freelancers, which I guess makes up a fair amount of our base. If you have, yeah, I guess I'm just looking for some way to handicap this, because it sounds like we're having to decide one set of projections versus another, which is why we get the big bucks, of course. But any help you can give me would be welcome.
I'm happy to help. What I can give you is from a research and data just over the overall meetings and event industry. While I know that each organization, each association has a very different nuance and a very different feel, the overall data is, at least in the meetings and event industry, that the overall participation, people do not want virtual as a greater whole. That they did a lot of it during COVID. You're seeing, lots of organizations pulling people back into offices, major organizations pulling people back into offices because the collaboration is not there. You can get content anywhere online in this day and age. And I think that is the problem for most organizations that are choosing to try to stay fully virtual, to either save cost or to save planning time, or whatever the reason is they're choosing that, because people can consume content anywhere. But what they can't do online is deepen relationships, build a connection to your organization, potentially have that aha moment where their career grows or they get a new opportunity. That just doesn't happen online. And hybrid conferences are too expensive. Almost everyone's pulling back from hybrid conferences because people just can't afford them. And it's very hard to make them equitable. And so the overall data is saying people want to be in person at conferences. They're coming back. Most organizations are seeing increases in attendance, not decreases. And I know that we are talking about a new economic time and things are changing, and we haven't seen what will come to fruition with the recession yet. The meetings industry is projecting we'll see a peak in the recession based on data done by major organizations in the travel industry by June or July, and that it will not get any worse than that, and that it will not have a substantial impact on overall meeting and event participation. Now, once again, those are projections, and we can't guarantee that that'll actually come to fruition. But for the most part, people are saying they want to be in person and they want to engage in person. My concern for you, which you can go either way, obviously, as an organization, and we'll do the best we can to plan an equitable, amazing convention, is that you have an opportunity to bring your members together in person, which you do very little. Even if it is a small percentage of your members, And if your competitive set organizations are bringing people together and people are wanting to engage in live meetings and events, they're likely to go to your competitors. And then it's like getting a member back. It's cheaper to keep a member than to gain a new member. And it's cheaper to keep an attendee or an engaged member or engaged attendee than it is to bring them back. So that is I think for me overall, like trying to plan as conservatively financially as possible for you all to support you in the best way possible. Knowing that most people do not want to attend virtually because it really is just Zoom meetings. At the end of the day, they're glorified Zoom meetings that people are struggling to pay attention and really gain, a lot of value out of, and that you won't have that significant touch point with a base of your members. So that would be what I can give you today. I can definitely pull together some reports on overall meeting trends that I can share with Jennifer, but I hope that helps a little bit. I know it doesn't speak specifically to journalism.
It does, and I mean, obviously, we do have our own set of concerns in our business, economic concerns. But I tend to agree with you, and I would give voice to the muted Kevin Smith, who says that we will lose a part of our soul if we tank on our flagship event. And I think I tend to agree with that. But thank you.
Let's see if Kevin can come in. Kevin?
Can you hear me?
Yes, success.
I don't know what I did. Thank you. Katie, I looked over a number of the individual hotel information that was given, and I think you're absolutely right that Indy seems to be a great spot. And from looking at some of the concessions that they've already made, it looks like you have got them in a prime spot to do even more with that. So congratulations on that. I would be in favor of I would be in favor of Indianapolis, but I do agree that I think on-site visitations, particularly with Cincinnati and the hotels in Indy, is the best next step. I just think that given what you have said to us with regards to profitability with the numbers, quite honestly, that took me by surprise. I didn't think that we could be profitable at that attendees numbers. So that pretty much solidifies my viewpoint. Although I'm not dismissing anything Ashanti said, because she's absolutely right. We have got to be the guardians of our finances, and we have to do that carefully. And I think that it's our responsibility. It's our financial responsibility. And I'll speak for Israel here. He will tell us what our fiduciary responsibilities are if I don't. But I think that given the possibility that we could make money with 450 people, I just think that I just worry that if we don't have in-person conventions, that we will be forfeiting a big portion of what this organization is. So having said that, I'll be quiet now again.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Just looking around. I do have actually I have a question rather than a comment for my fellow board members. I'm wondering if any of you know if any of our fellow journalism organizations or competing journalism organizations, whichever way you want to look at it, are planning virtuals in the next year or two. Does anybody know of any?
Yep. IRE, they have, IRE, they do IRE, NICAR, and then they renamed it this year, but it's like a DEI symposium. And I believe it's online this year, and they've done it online for like the past 3 or 4 years. I can drop a link in the chat. Let me look it up.
Okay, thanks, Daniel.
I'll just piggyback off of that's one symposium though, and their main conference is still happening in real life. So I think it's important to note that there's still like a main conference, and that's not what we're pitching here. This is the main conference we're talking about.
Okay. Good clarification. All right, I'm looking around for any other board member comments. Then we're going to open it up to public session for comments on the convention option, because we need to continue the discussion on virtual versus in person for 2024, so that we can decide whether to move ahead on the sites. Do I have that correct, Jennifer?
I'm sorry, I was reading the chat and I didn't hear what you asked.
Yeah, no, I'm just making sure because we have other bulleted options here. So before we discuss those, we need to nail down 2024, right? So I'm going to open it up to public comment now for 2024. And then we can hear from our members on the 2024 virtual versus in-person decision, right? All right. Opening it up to members.
Just heads up, we'll be giving 2 minutes per person. I'll be timing.
Thank you, Ashanti. And I'm just looking down the side of my screen. Okay, Brendan O'Reilly.
Hi, so the membership committee met yesterday, and the sentiment of the membership committee was everybody was in favor of an in-person convention. One of the things we talk about at the committee is what are the reasons that people join SPJ? Why did they want to join? Why do they re-up? And, you know, registering for the convention is a big reason why people remember to re-up. And if there's no convention happening in person, we're not really convinced that people are going to say, well, I'll just go do the virtual. You know, it's one thing to get off of work, to go travel, to go to a convention. It's another thing to take off work to sit at your laptop for a couple days. And then on the other side, I'm also the president of the Press Club of Long Island. We had a board meeting this morning. I mentioned that they were considering a virtual convention. And same thing, the sentiment was that a virtual convention is not very attractive for SPJ members, at least on Long Island.
All right. Thank you, Brendan. Appreciate those thoughts. Robert Becker.
Thank you, Claire. I think, as I said in the chat, unless you're expecting the convention to lose money, then, and Katie is telling us that it probably won't, then it doesn't benefit our financial situation to have a virtual rather than a in-person convention, because if the convention even is going to break even, it isn't taking anything away from the rest of our financial, our pool of money. The thing that happened last year with the convention was we had a very expensive event that went way beyond what it should have, and that's unfortunate. But SPJ conventions, even before the partnership with RTDNA, either broke even or made money every time. So this convention can get support from members, and I believe it's an important part of the organization to do that. It's a place where people not only network, but where we find people to become leaders in the organization for the future. So it does a lot of things structurally for SPJ to be able to see the people who are active in the organization and talk to them, because it helps us build for the future. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Looking around. Any other comments? This is about the 2024 convention, in person or virtual. All right, let's see. Stephanie Overman.
Yes, this doesn't happen very often, but I agree with Bob. I agree with Bob Becker. This is a way of reaching people. This is a recruitment tool for SPJ. It is a way, as Brendan said, to offer people who aren't members a reason to join, and to offer members a reason to stay members. That's a part of what we gain from having it in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Ellis.
I will just echo everything that the public comments have already said and leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Nicole DeCrisio.
Yeah, I have some comments about specific locations, but I'd rather save those if you guys will allow me to speak again on that. But what I would really like to focus on is the fact that having it in Indy in person would allow for some savings for our staff, because a lot of them are headquartered in Indianapolis. So there's no flight costs, there's no shipping costs. So it allows for significant savings. Also, And doing a little bit of research today, in 2000, we were able to get sponsorships to the tune of $60,000, specifically from Eli Lilly and MS Communications, both of which I'm sure would be willing to sponsor in Indianapolis again because they're headquartered there. And that equates to a little over $100,000 in today's money. And I have some attendance comments and other things, but it's really not fruitful to share all of those if the decision is to go virtual. So I'd like to kind of refrain and regroup if that is allowed.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. And good to see we have our RCs here tonight. Loretta McGraw.
There. Sorry, my camera is not working right now, but I did want to make a comment to the effect of I also do believe that it should be in person, and I like Indianapolis as the convention hosting. It just holds a lot of value both to the society as well as it being closer to my region. That will make it a lot more feasible for a lot of our members here in this Midwest region.
Good point. Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Just checking again. Bob, is your hand up from earlier or is it up again? Go
It is
ahead.
up again because I would like to say one thing, Claire,
Yeah.
because the date October 1 to 6 in Cincinnati, if that's the only date, then we can't go to Cincy. It is Rosh Hashanah is the 2nd to the 4th. And if you have any question about what effect that would have, in 2004, there was a significant drop in attendance because Yom Kippur started on the Sunday night that the convention ended.
Okay, was an oversight. Okay, thanks for pointing that out. All right, I don't see any other hands. One last chance for virtual versus in person for 2024. All right, I think we're ready. Anybody ready to present a motion?
Can I ask one clarifying question, Madam Chair?
Yes.
To Bob's concern, Katie, can you go back to the dates for Indianapolis?
Yeah, I mean, we're just trying to figure out whether we're virtual or in person right now. I mean, it's okay.
Right. No. But at least I'd like to address Bob's concern. So
Yeah.
the concern for our Jewish members would be Cincinnati. Is that right, Katie? Is that
That's correct.
Yes,
Okay.
for the dates that they've proposed, it would be over Rosh Hashanah, yes.
So then I guess as we move towards the vote, and I guess I'll clarify this with you, Claire. It looks like Cincinnati would be out if we're considering our Jewish members. It would only really be Indianapolis, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. If we decide.
I can go back to Cincinnati too. So I know that the primary focus was trying to get the vote of how we just move forward now with if we're gonna go live, then allowing me and Jennifer to move forward with negotiating and go to Cincinnati and ask if there are any other dates potentially that they can host. Usually they've given us what they can give us, but I can ask that question again if we're going to move forward. I just didn't want to waste the cities and the hotels' time if the decision was going to be made to go to virtual and we were just going to decline bids altogether.
I see. So then if we move forward on a vote, I guess the prelim vote would be to go virtual or to go city. And then if the majority votes to go city, then your team would then do the site visits and then you'd come back and give us the best deal of which city.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense to me. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
we
it,
would
Katie.
come back and after the sites and further negotiation, we would make a final recommendation for which hotel and which city to go to based on budget, everything, dates, everything, the whole package. Yes.
And to your team, Katie, and to Jennifer, I would take Hazel's concern to heart. I think going forward, we should probably consider the major holidays for both our Muslim community, our Jewish community, so that we stay away from trying to get involved in the Jewish holidays or in the Muslim holidays or the Christian holidays. So
Yes, and I did ask the dates we proposed to them. So I gave them a number of dates, and the dates I gave out when we submitted the request for proposal, none of them were over any holiday. They sometimes ask, can we give you alternate dates? And I will say yes, so that we can see what the proposal looks like. And this is what Cincinnati came back with. We definitely did not request a proposal over Rosh Hashanah.
Gotcha. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Kevin Smith has a hand up.
Yes, all right, yes, can you hear me? Along those lines, somebody, maybe Bob Becker, somebody who's been in this organization almost as long as I have or longer, we have to tread carefully on election years. And as I recall, the closer we get to November elections, the more impact it has on attendance at the conventions, if I remember correctly. So I guess I'm suggesting that if we are in Indianapolis in 2024, it would behoove us to have something as early in September as possible, because as I recall, we do lose a percentage of potential attendees because they are covering elections, in particular the presidential election. So much like the Jewish holidays, we have also taken that into consideration on those years.
All right.
Yeah.
And I
Kevin,
will say, Kevin, to that, just September, we're attempting to keep this conference in September as close to the dates as we were on last year, just for keeping presidential terms the same and turnover of those terms. And so that is the goal. And then also that would, stay away from school being out for holidays and elections and other holidays, essentially.
Your mic dropped, Kevin, or I think you're on mute.
No, my mic's off. Okay. I don't know what's going on.
We can hear you now.
Thank you. We have made the strategical error of having conventions over Jewish holidays, and also too close to Labor Day and too close to the start of academics. We have had conventions that have started at the 1st of September, and it has severely impacted academics and student attendance. So that is a reality. That's not speculation. That actually exists. And those of us who are in academics can tell you that having a convention at the end of August or the first week of September is problematic. So also keep that in mind.
Excuse me. Okay. Looking around. I think the comments have stopped. Sorry, I'm choking. Hold on. Okay. I think next step would be to take our vote or have a motion, please. I need to see if anybody is ready to make a motion on in-person versus virtual.
I will make a motion that we instruct the staff to proceed with a 2024 convention in person with the potential sites of Indianapolis or Cincinnati to be taking place in September, avoiding necessary conflicts with Jewish holidays and elections and school.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Seconded by Emily.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we got a motion on the table, Madam Chair. So up for discussion.
Yeah, discussion on the motion. Looks like the board is ready to vote. So I can see.
So Kevin, can I just reiterate, the motion is to instruct the staff to proceed with an in-person convention with either in Indianapolis or Cincinnati in September. Is that?
That's the essence of it. Yes.
Okay.
And I guess that includes instructing the staff to go ahead and
Correct.
confirm arrangements and look into more arrangements.
Correct. That's correct.
All right. Sorry, I'm
Discussion.
just putting for the
Yeah.
for the membership there.
All right, no discussion. There being no discussion, we are ready to take a roll call vote. Israel?
Yes, let me pull up the I had the names here in front of me.
Mhm.
Bear with me. All right, I'm just gonna do it across the board. All right, here's comes the roll call. Kevin,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Ashanti,
No.
Emily,
Yes.
Peter,
You're on mute, Peter, but I believe I saw you say yes. Thumbs up?
yeah, I think he's nodding yes, so yes. And Daniela,
No.
Jody, Spotted Bear,
Yes.
and Israel, I'm gonna be a yes. So that is 7-2 for a in-person convention, instructing the staff to go ahead and proceed with doing in-person visits to Indy or Cincy to get the best deal.
I'm
And
just
so
clarifying the number, Israel, because I don't see Adam Senate.
Oh, I'm so thank you. I'm sorry. My apologies. 6-2. My apologies. I always have that number 7-2 in my head.
That's okay.
Number 10, no, number 3, spicy.
And Jody, you need to go on mute if you can, please.
I think somebody's ordering dinner. Jody, can you order me fries with that, please?
I want mine
I'm
spicy too,
hungry
please.
All right,
I
Israel,
love that.
just, announce that again, please, to clarify.
Yes, the vote was 6-2. The motion passes.
Okay, thank you all for that vigorous discussion. Now, the question is, do we go back to the other options to get some feedback on those? There were 3 other bulleted items on the option list.
While we're here, if we can, I would like to entertain the idea of partnering with CMA and ACP every 2 years. So yeah, I would really like to strongly support that and open that up to discussion.
Good, that's great, Emily. That was bullet number 4, I believe. So let's do that one. So the item for discussion is, as Emily just said, every 3 years in Washington, DC, partnering with ACP CMA, because that is their convention site too. So, all right, let's board members first. Go ahead, Emily, or did you already just make your comment?
Sure, no, thank you. I just want to say that I think it's really important that we continue our partnership with student media. We've received positive feedback from it. I continue to hear positive feedback from it, both from students and professionals, and having the opportunity for them to co-mingle and learn from each other. I think it helps take pressure off of us when it comes to programming, because there's more availability for joint programming. It takes pressure off of CMA and ACP when it comes to finding mentors and resume reviewers and paper critiquers and things of that nature. So it's a lot of like 2 birds, 1 stone situations. I think even though DC can be expensive, it is an exciting place for people to gather in media. So we always see a lot of attendance spikes from that and interest from that. And going off of that, I think because we'll have a partner in CMA and ACP guaranteed, hopefully that can help with what I think one of our biggest pitfalls in the past DC convention was the yacht ride that was exclusive and expensive. By having this partnership solidified now early on, number 1, we're getting our foot in the door early. And number 2, we can hopefully do some sort of joint opening situation where we do not spend excess funds and only include a small amount of members. So those are my points, and I really hope we strongly consider this.
Good points. Thanks, Emily. Ashanti.
I completely agree with what Emily has said. I think that the partnership and the relationship that we have with CMA and ACP is invaluable. It is also a great way for us to start to cultivate the next generation of SPJ members, because they are being exposed to and engaging with our current members, both early career journalists and veteran journalists. And so I would also say too, if we looked at some of the numbers between the convention that we last had in person before COVID, not talking about Media Fest, and where we partnered with NAHJ and RTDNA, those attendance numbers were lower than we had in DC. And I think that that is a huge testament to that partnership that we are constantly growing. And so I think, doing every 3 years in DC with ACP and CMA would be a fantastic partnership. And I think if we can really keep an eye on the budget and make sure that we are not overspending in any area, I think that we can make money. I know if we had not overspent by $67,000 on that opening reception, we would have actually made a pretty good amount of money off of that convention. So as long as we can budget in a way that is conservative and then stick to that budget, I also think that this is something that would make us a pretty decent amount of money going forward. So I support going to DC every 3rd year with ACP and CMA as our partners.
Good. All right. Thanks, Ashanti. Daniela, and then Israel.
Sorry, I was finding the unmute button. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a great idea. Plus, correct me if I'm wrong, but once you're out of college, you're no longer a member of those associations, right? So those could be future lifelong SPJ members just by being exposed at that conference. So yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Israel?
I echo everything my colleagues have said, just from a professor perspective, and I mentor the SPJ campus chapter here at Elon. Washington, D.C. offers education opportunities, engagement with students. I had so much fun hanging out with, getting to know CMA members and ACP members. And so I find that partnership quite beneficial. It goes both ways. And I would hope that even we could open up presentations by the college students. I think even our members could learn a lot from them. So I hope this becomes a long-term partnership going forward.
Great. And I'll just chime in before we go to the public session on this. Yeah, I agree. I think the energy in DC was amazing. It was invigorating. I think some of our challenges financially were in that we joined a convention already in progress. And so we had to make adjustments with hotel accommodations and blocks. And I think that was a challenge because that was already in place with the ACP CMA. So if we plan it out every 3 years and we can plan ahead, I think that will work out much better. And I think it's a great idea to anchor us in Washington, D.C. It's a great journalism town with lots of potential speakers and guests and good energy for a convention. All right. Is there any other board member? Peter?
For some reason, your mic, I know your mic, no, we can't hear you, but I know your mic is not.
Sharing a mic with Kevin. Can't hear you yet. Okay, we'll go back to you when you figure it out. All right, I don't see any other board members, so we'll go to
Claire.
I'm sorry, you got.
No, I wonder, Jackie Alexander is here. She's president. I think she's incoming president of CMA. I don't want to force her to speak, but I do at least want to acknowledge that she's here. And I don't know if she care to comment as well before we open it up to the public, but I want to thank her for being here as well.
Yeah, and Jackie, if you're there and you want to speak up, that's fine. I know Jackie has already spoken to both myself and Ashanti about some ideas and collaborating, which is wonderful. Jackie, either now or you could come in a little bit later if you like.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about the MeFS partnership. I was waiting for the public comment and Bob is ahead of me. So I'm going to defer to Bob and then I'm happy to go after him.
After Bob. Okay. All right, Mr. Becker.
Yeah, I'm going to say something that is going to shock everybody. I agree with everything that's been said, except I have a caveat. I think there is value in moving the convention around the country to the west, to the middle, and to the east. And if we're going to do that on a 3-year cycle, then it means that it's the only place, DC is going to be the only place in the east where we will have a convention. And I think there are other places we could have conventions in the east that would be draws for people and would make it easier for some people, for example, in the south, whether it's Savannah, Fort Lauderdale, wherever, or in Boston, so that we spread around the cost of travel. And I think we need to consider that.
Okay. Jackie, are you ready? Israel, thank you for acknowledging her here tonight. Jackie?
Hi, everyone. Jackie Alexander. I will be president of CMA in November of 2023, and I will be the CMA president during the 2025 if we are reviving Media Fest. I will say that many of our CMA members, which are all college media advisors, many of them are also SPJ members, and having the ability to go to both conventions in the same year, in the same place, is a really great value for our advisor members, as well as a good value for student members and student SPJ chapters. We are, as an organization, is committed to having a long-term sustainable relationship with SPJ, and I'm really looking forward to all the things that we can accomplish over the next 3 years.
Thank you, Jackie. Appreciate that collaboration. That's terrific. Okay, I'm just looking around the room. Any other comments? Okay, there being none. I think we can actually, I'm not quite sure if this is a vote. I guess it is. If Fred Brown could clarify that for me.
No, it's always better to take a vote just to be sure, but I don't think one is really necessary.
I guess we'll do it, board members. We'll take a vote.
I move that we allow the staff to move forward with negotiating a contract or memorandum of understanding with CMA ACP for every 3 years in DC.
I second.
Right, okay, discussion? I think we thoroughly discussed. Okay.
Can I make a point? I don't think,
There you are.
and I think we already know this, but I don't think we want to discourage staff or this organization from having relationships with any other organization that may come in the future. And I understand and I agree 100% with what everyone said regarding CMA and so forth, but I also think that we need to be on the lookout for relationships with other organizations, and as those make themselves known to us, that we take that into consideration as well. So just to say that we should have our doors open to anyone who wants to collaborate with us.
Just clarifying point, I was never making the recommendation that we only ever partner with ACP and CMA. We've obviously been communicating with other organizations too, so that door is 100% open as you suggest.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the vote for this. Roll call vote, Israel.
Okay, here we go.
And thank you. I'm just clarifying, you put the motion into the chat. Thank you.
I did. So that's the motion. And let's take a vote here. Claire.
Yes.
Ashanti.
Yes.
Emily.
Yes.
Daniela. Yes, she's saying yes, I think. Okay, so
Sorry,
Jody.
mute.
That's okay. Jody.
Yes.
Adam is here now, present. Adam?
Yes. Yeah.
Kevin.
Yes.
Peter. Up, and Israel is a yes. That's a unanimous vote. The motion passes.
All right, thank you, Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Secretary Treasurer. All right, I'm moving on to, I think we can move on and move those other two bullets to the next meeting. I think we've been discussing convention for over an hour, so I'm going to move us along. Thank you for all that progress made. It's good to be planning ahead. Back to that. I'm going to move on to number 6, which is old and new business. Does anybody have any old or new business to announce, board members? Okay, I don't see anything.
Claire, I just have one. I have one quick question.
Go ahead.
We are going to go into executive session with regards to the journalist toolbox. I want to know, will Mike Riley be allowed to be in that executive session? Because I know Israel had posed questions to him yesterday, and I have some questions. And I need to know if he's going to be in that executive session to answer those questions, and if not, could he comment before we go into executive session and answer some of our questions?
I'm looking, that was not the plan, because there is counsel involved. So.
Claire, Claire, this is Mark Balin.
Thank you. I didn't see you there. I was hoping you're there.
Yeah,
Thank you. Can you
I think
clarify?
he could be invited in at any time and
Okay.
into the session. So if you want to start the session without him and then invite him in at some point, that would be acceptable, I think.
Okay. So is that, I don't know if that was old or new business, but I don't think anybody has any old or new business. Okay. So we need a motion to enter executive session.
Can I have a point of clarification, Madam Chair, real quick?
Yep.
I have a question for the parliamentarian, as always. Fred, just so that I understand correctly, and I had a similar question for you. We're going to go into executive session and we're going to go and discuss, as it says here, right? We're going to discuss a contract issue. And then we'll and the contract issue is either, to sign, to renew, whatever it is. And then we're going to take a vote. When we come out of executive session, we have to tell the public what the decision was and what the vote was. Is that correct, Fred?
Yes, in fact, in some cases, it's best to take the vote in public.
Okay. Got it. And to announce what the vote is for, right?
Yes,
What
right.
we're deciding to
Yes.
do.
I mean, you've told them what you are going to do, and then you should make a decision and then take the vote.
Got it. Thank you.
After the discussion, take the vote in public.
So as a secretary, I don't have to take notes because those notes will be done in public. Or those votes will be done. Okay.
The votes will be taken in public, right?
Got it. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Appreciate it. Sorry, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point it out.
I have that on my agenda as the way to proceed, but I'm glad you clarified. That's good. I see Hazel Becker is asking in the chat, is it possible to have public comment now? I have another public comment on the agenda as number 9. Fred Brown, can you address that?
I don't know that that's actually covered, but you could certainly have this in Robert's rules about an executive session. If I would say that if people want to comment at some point, this would probably be the time to do it. Bob Becker, do you have an opinion on that?
I mean, I think the session can be open to public comment at any time by the vote by the chair at her discretion, unless there's objection from the rest of the board. And to delay public comment until after the executive session just requires people to hang around to get a text to come back so that they can say something. So as a practical matter, it's probably easier for most people if you do it now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm fine either way. I put it after the executive session because I figured after hearing the results of the executive session, there might be some comments, but I'm okay to opening it now. So go ahead, Hazel, you have something to comment on.
Hi, I thank you for listening to me now. I just wanted to quickly say that in the past, going back maybe more than 2 years, most of the materials that were going to be presented at a board meeting were put into the meeting packet and therefore available to visitors as well as board members before the meeting. And I don't care whether it's there before the meeting, but when someone asks to have something put into the Dropbox during the meeting, it's because they want to see things that were in the presentation. so that they can go back and refresh their memories. And to say, yeah, we'll put it up after the meeting's over isn't very helpful.
Yeah, is there
So,
one, is there something in particular that you're asking for, Hazel?
I'm
The
asking
convention?
for the future for as many things as possible to be put into the Dropbox.
Agree
so
with
that
you.
people have access
I
to
thought
it.
maybe you had a particular item in mind, but Jennifer,
Well,
can-
tonight it was the PowerPoint with the options at the
Got it.
beginning.
and I'm gonna ask
and-
Jennifer to address that. She'll explain to you. We did consider it and everything, believe me. The more the better. I'm with you on that. But sometimes there's some financial information and contractual information that really can't go public. So I'll let Jennifer just explain that briefly.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to, Jennifer Ellis asked me to put the PowerPoint on the convention in the folder. And the only reason I didn't is because I had so many screens open. I'm trying to admit people when they come back to the meeting and make sure I'm, muted, unmuted when I need to be. So it was just, I didn't want to be doing too much on my screen since I was sharing my screen, but definitely, I'll keep that in mind and I'll put materials in as much as possible before the meeting.
Thank you. This is really just a request for SPJ to return to the practice of as much as transparency as possible and
Yeah.
sharing with members who are devoted to this organization all the information that it is possible to share. I'm not asking for access to financial things or to last minute things, but not to have things available. It seems like, in the past few years, there's been a move toward less transparency, and I'm hoping SPJ will move back toward more transparency. That's all I want to say.
If
Thank
you remember, the last board meeting had a lot of stuff in the folder before the meeting.
I know.
We shared a lot. So yeah, we're trying to move in that direction.
Thank you.
I was working on this PowerPoint really late last night and it just didn't make it in the folder. So, but I'll keep that in mind and we'll do better moving forward. Thank you,
Yep,
Hazel.
and as president, I like to say we've made progress on transparency this year. I'm proud of that. So I think we're stepping in the right direction. Okay, for the next, moving into executive session, we need to have a motion. And I also would like to ask Mark Balin and Fred about, well, actually, we have Fellows of the Society is on the agenda first. So I guess we'll move into executive session for that first. So we need a motion for that.
Motion to move into executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank
Who
you.
was the second?
Well, I'm wondering if you could hear me. Could you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Peter.
Yay, I second. Okay. I
Okay.
got my voice back. Thank you.
Is there, okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor, how do you want to do for the vote, Israel?
I'll just voice vote. All those in favor of moving to executive session, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Okay, by voice vote, it's unanimous, Madam Chair. So we can move into executive session.
And Jennifer Royer will alert everybody when we're done. All right, see you all soon, I hope. Thank you.
Jennifer, make sure you stop recording. Or
All right, welcome back to our board meeting. So after discussing at great length the item on the agenda, 7B, do I have a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve a contract to assign the Journalist Toolbox website and its content over to a third party.
Is there a second?
second.
Discussion? All right, looks like we're ready for the vote. And Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Secretary Treasurer, how would you like to do the vote?
We can do the vote by voice vote.
By voice?
By voice. All those in favor to approve the motion, say aye. All those opposed, say nay.
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 The motion does not pass, and that's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. And moving on to 7A on the agenda. The Fellows of the Society. Do I have a motion? Can I entertain a motion about the Fellows of the Society?
I would like to make a motion to table the discussion for the Fellows of the Society to a later date when we have more time to appropriately consider all of the candidates.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
As a point of order, I think there is no discussion on a motion to table.
Oh,
But
okay.
we lost our parliamentarian, so we
Yeah.
don't know for sure.
This is bedtime.
Anarchy.
Okay, so we can move on to the vote.
You want to call the question vote? All right. I will do it again by voice vote. All those in favor to table discussion on the fellows, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, so it's unanimous. We will table discussion for the next board meeting.
All right, just to honor, thank you, to honor the agenda, we do have public comment period. I think we've lost many public members, but I'm opening it up right now.
Nicole Drapicio just logged in. This is your moment, Nicole.
I see.
My moment for what?
Public comment.
You just
Oh,
No
okay.
pressure.
Just in time.
Yep.
Just in time. Okay. I'm not putting my camera on because would like the record to show that I'm in my pajamas. Anyway,
Nicole, I'm gonna put that in the minutes, by the way, Nicole.
Definitely.
feel free. Feel free. A sensible person at almost 11 o'clock at night would be in their pajamas.
Not the SPJ board, though. We're hardcore.
Did you have a comment, Nicole? In your pajamas?
Come on, enlighten us. Something inspiring.
Something inspiring. Oh, that's a lot of pressure.
I can come back
Wait,
to you. Actually,
Nicole,
Jennifer Ellis has her hand up, so we can go to her.
Okay.
I would actually want to flag that Nicole has been a huge vocal supporter of having the conference, this 2024 conference in Indy. And I think it would be great if I don't want to put you on the spot, but since you have the spot, if you want to like at least take a minute or so and just explain to the rest of the board why it's so important to you and why you're so passionate about it.
Here's a plug.
Yeah, maybe since I just kind of hopped in here last minute, let Jennifer go because she raised her hand.
Okay, Jennifer Ellis.
I'm just curious. So the vote was to have a third party take over the journalist toolbox, and that did not pass. So what does that mean? Because right now the journalist toolbox isn't in the budget as far as I recall.
I think what's not in the toolbox, or I'm sorry, what's not in the budget was paying a contractor for the toolbox.
Right.
That's
So-
not in the budget.
So if we're not assigning it to a third party, it's just not, we're not giving it any money and not doing anything with it?
No, it's headquarters is managing it.
Headquarters staff will now manage that page.
So it's
I think it's also
been
fair to say
taken
that.
in-house.
I think it's also fair to say that kinks are still being worked out and we don't know everything yet. We just know that that contract wasn't approved.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Nicole, are you ready to give us your indie plug?
I am. So first, I kind of already touched on the financial benefits, and I don't want to take too much more of your guys' time. You guys have been in a long meeting. But we have, there's 7 journalism programs within an hour of Indianapolis. many of which I'm already trying to start chapters at. Or there's a couple that it may be simple paperwork issues. Specifically Ball State and the University of Indianapolis think that they have chapters, but they're not on the website. And then also my passion and dream, as I know Claire knows because I said it in an RC meeting, is to be able to lead a tour back to DePaul for the 115th anniversary. There's a lot to see, including the room in which the 10 founders got together and formed this great organization. And just then also to highlight the area in Indianapolis that it's in. There's any hotel chain you could possibly want in a 4 to 5 block radius from either of any of those sites in Indianapolis. So, and at all price points. So if, you know, the JW Marriott skyscraper, which is gorgeous, is too pricey, just a few blocks down the road, there's a Courtyard Inn by Marriott, and everything in between. And it's within walking distance of many of the wonderful, wonderful things in the area. And it's also really important to me as both regional coordinator to want it in my region. It's not been in my region since 2009. And essentially all of my time in SPJ, it's been in locations that as an early career journalist has been cost prohibitive. And I really think occasionally having it in the Midwest allows for all of us that are crazy enough to drive 6 hours to a conference, you know, or 4 hours to Chicago for a conference or whatever, to experience the wonderful things that we offer at our conventions. So that's my shtick.
That's a fantastic plug, and I want to commend you and Adam, who are both so excited about the history of SPJ and researching it, and thank you for doing all that work.
I just acquired the program for the 1934 convention at DePaul, so we have precedent for it being there.
What year is that?
1934.
34. I wasn't there.
Handwritten notes. Neither was I, but I also just wanted to point out as well to compliment what Nicole just said, that Nicole and I are working on starting a student chapter at DePaul, and we have 3 students already who are interested, which is enough to kick the chapter off hopefully in the fall. So
good
we'll
news.
have a chapter there for the convention.
Good news all around. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate that. Appreciate you coming back to tell us all that. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the chance to do so.
Of course. All right. I think our comment period is wrapping up, and I think we can move on to number 10. Is there, can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, that should be made.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
Any
All right.
discussion?
So Ashanti was first.
Yes.
Who was second?
Me, Daniela.
I
Okay,
think the
Danielle. Okay,
motion
thank
to
you.
adjourn should be made by somebody on the East Coast, not somebody who's going to have dinner afterwards.
Listen, I'm someone who missed her kids going to bed. Like, give me this.
It's vote yet, so I don't know if it's approved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. Thank you for all your hard work tonight.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good weekend.